found God on the corner of First and Amistad, where the West was all but one. All alone, smoking his last cigarette. I said, where you been? He said, ask anything. Where were you when everything was falling apart? All my days were spent by the telephone. It never rang. All I needed was a call. It never came. In the corner of First and Amistad, lost and insecure. You found me lying on the floor. Surrounded, why'd you have to wait? Where were you, just a little late? You found me. In the end, everyone ends up alone, losing her. The only one who's ever known who I am, who I'm not, and who I wanna be. No way to know how long she will be next to me. Lost and insecure, you found me lying on the floor. Surrounded, why'd you have to wait? Where were you, just a little late? You found me. Early morning, city breaks. I've been calling for years and years and years and years, and you never left me no messages. You never sent me no letters. You got some kind of nerve taking hold on word. Lost and insecure, you found me lying on the floor. Where were you, lost and insecure? You found me lying on the floor. Surrounded, why'd you have to wait? Where were you, just a little late? You found me, why'd you have to wait? To find me.
Thank you. Welcome to Collective. We are so glad you're with us, every one of you. I'm Ben. I'm the pastor of the church. I'll be the host for the service. Hey, Margot! We're in downtown DeLand, Florida. It's gorgeous outside. We put the furniture out front. Wherever you are, we hope it's beautiful there. Welcome to our living room from anywhere in the world. We are collectivechurch.com. My goodness. There's life in the room. That's exciting. You can subscribe and stay connected at wearecollectivechurch.com. Some of you in this room, actually many of you, this is like your 100th or 200th or 300th time gathering with us. And some of you, this is not only the first time you've ever gathered with us, this is maybe your first time like in a church or in a religious community in a long, long time. So we want to open by saying thanks for trusting us. Your perspectives keep us fresh. They make us alive. This week, our family struggled with heavy stuff with our friends. I don't know how many of you guys can relate to that, like friends going through tough stuff and struggling to know how, to be supportive, how to be good friends, how to, handle your stuff and give and be, all that, really tough. And the kids having tough conversations with kids at school. Kids can be mean, right? People can be mean. And we did a bunch of great work at the church this week, and my back hurts. And I'm coming in with that. All that to say, that's what's going on with me, and I'm really glad to be here with you guys with all that energy, kind of the good and the difficult. So I want to begin by simply bearing witness to the courage it takes to gather. And we want to honor that courage with belonging, with just a simple message as we begin that you belong. You belong. If you've been here a long time, if this is your first time, you belong. And part of what we mean when we say you belong is that everyone around you adds value. We believe when we get together for this time on Sunday night that everyone around you can add value, and that for this time, everyone around you is equal. So you belong, everyone around you adds value, and everyone around you is equal. In person and online, live now or later on, whenever, wherever, your presence makes us who we are. That's what we mean. So welcome. Liturgy means the work of the people, not religious entertainment, but spiritual formation as we do this work together. Here to help us work tonight, Kenny is helping to host in the room and online. We've got Heather on the couch. Thanks for jumping in. Heather, our artist in residence, Freddie. How about a hand for that opener? Yeah. Solid work. Thank you, Freddie. And you may notice we don't have coffee this week. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but we do have coffee cups. Just let me say don't eat those almonds yet, because you're going to need them. Shall we? We're going to sing a little bit. And when I say we, I mean you guys, so join us.
Different paths with beautiful people with messy pasts, so have no fear, no judgment here. Whether you believe in Jesus or don't believe in anything, something you can teach us. You belong, no right, no wrong. Table when no one's turned away, will love without why, no one has to hide, finding God in people, sharing hearts as equals, where you are held in light, good news is on your side. Mystery and solidarity helps us to find some peace in the great unknown. You don't have to be alone. Lean into grace. Help us make a place with an open table where no one's turned away. Love without why, no one has to hide, finding God in people, sharing hearts as equals, where
going to be honest with you guys, I couldn't hear you, but I could feel you. I could feel you singing, for sure. I think at this point, the amazing Miss Ella is going to take the Minions of Glory. June, Margot, Huck, Kieran. Well, okay, yes, and it's time to perform. Come on, it's time to go with Miss Ella. You guys are going to go have fun. I heard you're going to play messy games. You might go outside. There might be a hose involved or a bucket. Yeah, learning about grace and belonging in all the fun ways. How about a hand for Miss Ella? Thank you for our kids programming. We appreciate it. Come on, June. Now, June. Come on, June. Let's go. It's time. Thank you. You're such a leader. Thank you. You're being such a great leader. Fantastic. All right. Heather, you want to throw the community statement on us? How's that?
I could do that.
Let's do that.
Let's try that. We value highly the metaphor of journey. We're different people from different places and different backgrounds, representing an intergenerational community, and we've traveled different paths. So we agree not to make assumptions about the person across from us, next to us, or in conversation with us. We challenge ourselves to be sensitive, knowing this community includes a diverse group of people, from lifelong followers of Jesus to people who are just now open to the idea that God might exist. We strive to avoid offense, ask good questions, articulate, and explain our responses. We don't assume fluency in Bible, spirituality, or church language, because we believe the message of Jesus is not for Christianity, but for humanity. So, we do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
Sometimes I just need that. I just need to, I wonder what the good news is. And I just need to hear that. Hey, Bill and Joy, how's it going? Hey, Andrew, welcome. We are Collective Church. We, us in the room, and those of us who also tune in online. Kenny, who's with us? Anybody online?
We've actually got a lot of folks online. We've got Jim and Jay. Melanie's watching from home.
Fantastic, and we've got Wilson's in the room and Wilson's online. The Wilsons have their bases covered. Awesome.
Also John, so we've also got representation from... Yeah.
Got a John Scott and an Annabelle Berman Scott, okay.
Yeah.
Look, you guys are all
showing
up.
And Dottie's watching along too.
Yes,
we've got
Dottie.
A full house online.
Man, full house online. Really glad that you guys are with us online. Super happy to have you along. So we say in our community statement every week, across from us, next to us, or in conversation with us. And it's really funny. I mean, this is we have to preserve the self-criticism of any good tradition. So in the Bible, we get the prophets, right? The criticism is preserved within the tradition. So we say we make no assumptions. But the truth is we assume that we're going to be in conversations because we say in conversation with the person across from us, next to us. So Jim Kane, hey Jim, happy you're with us online. Jim's been saying this for years, and I'm just going to paraphrase. It's hard to build a movement if you don't know who's in it. It's hard to build a movement if you don't know who's in it. So we're going to talk to each other. And I feel you pulling back because you're like, oh God, this feels like a church thing where I have to turn to my neighbor and touch somebody, and I don't want to do that. Stop it. It's not a church thing. It's not a religious thing. What I want you to hear me say, and if we need to, we'll do this. We'll go around the room because we've got expertise from so many different fields. I promise you, don't take my word for this. This is human, familial, tribal, communal technology that preceded any organized religion. This is not religious technology. If we're going to be people with other people, we have to learn to know each other. We have to learn to have a conversation with each other. So if you're willing to share, and this is going to be a quick one, we're going to put 2 minutes on the clock. If you're willing to share with someone next to you, quick answers. So not everybody will get to answer. Same rules as always, no me monsters, but you can give a 10 or 15 second answer. And you can start thinking about this regularly. We're going to do something like this at the beginning each week. What felt hard this week? And what felt lighter this week? What felt hard this week? And what felt lighter this week? And I want to start here with connection. I'm going to treat myself as an example. when we're together, when we're being our true selves, it's okay to put heavy stuff down. When we're together, when we're being our true selves, it's okay to put heavy stuff down. Parenting was hard this week. And it's okay to hold important things up. When we're together and we're being our true selves, it's okay. It's good to celebrate. It's okay to hold important things up. Super exciting stuff coming with Collective in the fall. June got good grades, really good grades. Huck is showing real progress in understanding and communicating his feelings, which is a crazy thing to say about a 7-year-old. But it's okay to put heavy things down. It's okay to hold important things up. So what felt hard this week? What felt lighter this week? And just give yourself a second for an intuition kind of gut check. I think you'll know it, but something you feel like you can maybe share. Or if not, you get the gift of being a great listener. So just show up and let people be who they are. There's no pressure for you to share, but let's take 2 minutes and see if we can't just practice like a micro belonging of getting to know each other a little bit. I promise I'm going to participate. I'm going to ask Freddie something about lighter or heavier in the mic right now. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so 2 minutes on the clock, talk to one another, and then we're going to get right back into it. Go. And that's 2 minutes. I'm going to give you another 10 seconds to wrap it up. The good news is we're only going to pause because we are going to have more conversation. So we'll be back. We'll be back around these tables. All right. Just as a way, this is good. It's okay. It's okay. This is good. There's life in the room. There's vibrant conversation. Joy is preaching. Again. All right. So thank you. We won't do this every week, but I think we're doing pretty good on time tonight. So I want to honor the fact that some of us have named heavy things and some of us have shared joys. And if you would like to share those with the larger community so that we can carry those with you and kind of hold light for those celebrations, we can do that. Is there anyone that would like to share anything? Something that felt heavier this week or something that felt lighter? Oh, Andrew and then Heather. Cool. Cool. So you've got this health kick going and you're feeling better. Awesome. Awesome. Better in the gut, more energy, so like physically lighter. Yeah, no, I know what that feels like. Good. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, overall wellness. Yeah, you'd be surprised. I've been doing this for 20 years, and actually, you wouldn't be surprised how frequent it is that people will come and be like, I feel so far from God. And I'll be like, tell me about your life. And they're like, well, I eat fast food and I don't sleep at all. And I have really toxic relationships. And I'm like, it's fascinating that you feel far from God. What can we do about that? Yeah, so changing your lifestyle also. Yeah, good. Good. Anybody? Oh, Heather, you had one. What do you got?
We probably say this every year, but this summer's been hot as goodness knows what.
Yeah.
And to wake up this morning and open the door felt like God had opened a window. It was glorious.
Yes. Fall is falling. And I know that's not nice because there's probably people where it's still not as nice as it is here. But we feel for you. It's nice here. Lewis, did you have your hand up?
The harder things seem to lump up. It's just then you have to deal with it. The lighter side, what's just now everything can be killing.
Yeah.
And in 2 minutes,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I've been reading fascinating research about how people belong. And apparently, if you make people feel safe and you give them opportunities to connect and you remind them that they're equal to the people around them, things tend to take care of themselves. So we're going to try that for a while and see how community goes from there. We've said it, we've sung it, we've connected in the room. Again, if you've got more to share, we're going to have more time to share. Kenny, how do we practice the community statement this week together?
Well, it begins with your email. If you haven't yet, I suggest that you subscribe and check the box for the rundown. And then you can select your group preferences, but of course only after you've verified that you've checked the rundown. Otherwise, you'll miss out on the news about all the groups that you've selected, and that includes yoga, cares, pints and parables, collective kids, work of the people, volunteers, art and soul. We have a whole range of opportunities for you guys to connect. By doing this, your dashboard will be set up just how you want it for both communication and practice. Coming up on, I think it's the 27th, we've got our next Art and Soul event at the Create Space with Jenny Beth. She is asking that we bring no longer used or broken items to create something beautiful or useful. She suggests like an old garment or broken CDs. And if you have an idea for what you want to create, or if you want to crowdsource from the people that show up, it's all about the journey of creation. So often we're afraid of not being perfect or useful, when really we just need to change our perspectives. It's going to be a really fun time.
That sounds amazing. I'm excited about that. Yeah. How many of you guys like doing some form of, and I actually think of organizing as a form of this, but like making something beautiful out of a mess, like you like to go and either clean somewhere, or like a mosaic where you take something broken and like make art out of it. Yeah, so there's a few of us. We're some weirdos. Jess loves that. I'm going to switch over to another document real quick, so I can remind myself of what I want to do here. One of the reasons we don't have, well, let me say this. Are the kids still back there? I hear them. I hear their voices. Oh, well, the truth hurts at 7 and 10. So they want a dog, but we can't have a dog because they want the parts that they enjoy, but they don't want the responsibility parts. And we're learning about that. And Collective wants coffee, but we don't do the responsibility part of cleaning up coffee. And that's just an illustration of a larger need for shared responsibility, especially as I'm stepping back from the ability to administrate all this. And so we're at a point where we're finally ready for some volunteer teams to kick in. And the premise is this. I'm going to give you like Sociology 101 in a minute and a half. Trying to build a movement requires people. And what holds people together is culture. And what I'm going to say the definition of culture is, just for the sake of our conversation tonight, culture is predictable shared feelings and experiences. And as I've already said, specifically, safety, connection, and equality. We name that feeling, the feeling of safety, connection, and equality, we name that unconditional belonging. It's the first word on the top left of our website, unconditional belonging and transformative love. Unconditional belonging is really tough. Well, it's just like a paradox. It's simultaneously only possible one relationship at a time, right? Because that's the only place unconditional belonging can happen. It's also really tough if you're only doing that experience one relationship at a time. And so what happens is a culture realizes that it needs people to create teams to serve the creation and multiplication of those feelings and those experiences. And this is all social organizations. Again, this is not a religious technology. This is any group of people who say, we all care together about this, we should organize the way we care about it. So modern leadership had that idea for like the last 100 years, and they thought it was a fascinating idea. 2,000 years ago, Jesus said, follow me, and we can help everyone come home to themselves and to one another, meaning safety, connection, and equality. So what I want you to know is this is, again, we've done this, I don't know, seeing some of your faces 5 times in the last 7 years. Reorganize, reimagine, rebuild it. This is the DNA of Collective. It's called design thinking. So we have needs. We talk to each other. We come up with ideas. And then we prototype those things. And then we test some solutions and see what works. The best news is, and this is one of the most fun parts of being at Collective, is that we know that lots of it won't work. A ton of it's going to fail. It's not going to work. We're going to have to redo it. We're going to have to find new ways to do it. But that's part of the fun. That's the creative process. That's the art that we don't show up every week and go, well, we've always done it this way. We had stained glass 300 years ago, and that's good enough, damn it. So no, we're having to figure out new ways to do it. The best that we can come up with right now is for right now, we need this stuff every other week. What we're calling a venue team. So this is this whole experience of what we have to do on a Sunday night. So if you can't get here an hour and a half or two early and you can't stay after, that's probably not the team for you. You can be helpful in some other way. But that's sort of, think of that as first impressions. We need a venue team for when we're doing stuff as a congregation. That has everything to do with the signage being out, furniture being out front, the signs are out there, and then on and on. People and culture. This is kind of what we're talking about, is that this is the way that people get on board with a movement. So historically, you can imagine this has been Dan Hensley. Dan is like the mascot, the natural energy. He does it intuitively. Nobody has to train him. He just likes and is curious about people, so he goes and greets. But the idea is that we need somebody at the front door and somebody behind the bar at all times. That's crucial to hospitality. And they need to be people who know what they're talking about, who are personable, who are going to make eye contact, who are going to make people feel safe, connected, and equal. So even if it's just a coffee server, if they talk down to you, you don't feel equal. All of a sudden, you've got a power dynamic. You just walked into church for the first time, and the person behind the bar is being kind of snooty. And it's like, what? No. So we need people who understand the deep down what we're trying to do to just show up and do the stuff that has to get done every week. Cleaning, stocking, and supplying. We had an awesome cleaning day for 2 hours. This is probably a little bit of the reason my back hurts. But part of what I was saying is like, that's joy for me. That's Zen. Jess and I were here, and it was joy. Dan, I mean, the glint in his eye that faded over those 2 hours, but it started out, it was just, yes. Money and merchandise. Money and merchandise. This is not fun to talk about, but money comes in every week. And it has to be counted, and we got to make sure that it's handled right, because churches don't have a great track record of handling money well. We also have about $3,000 tied up in merchandise in the front corner. We've got brand new Collective logo t-shirts, But we need somebody to stand there and sell them. We need somebody to track the money that comes in. We need somebody to tell us how much needs to be deposited. Just all the mechanics. So if you're hearing something and you're like, I could do that, that could be something I could contribute on a weekly basis or every other week or whatever, we're going to make some ways in the coming weeks for you to get connected to those things. Because the truth is, we're only going to have the things that we want enough to do. The other stuff is just going to fall apart. And we're not going to do coffee if we can't do coffee. This is also a really fun time where we all get to look at each other and be really honest and go, what do we want? Maybe we don't care about putting furniture outside. Maybe that's just something Ben wants because he thinks it feels welcoming. If nobody cares about it, then we won't do it. Okay, Jess loves furniture. We got a furniture person. So yeah, let's listen inside. What are the things you care about? Or maybe connect to your experience. What was important to you when you first came? And it's like, man, if I was coming to church again for the first time and there wasn't a good cup of coffee, that would be a deal breaker. Or then maybe make coffee. Do something like that. Make it matter to you. Does anyone have any questions about that? That was a lot. That's also going to go out in an email from Ben. There's going to be an email from Ben, which we promise only comes out once every quarter, something like that. 4 times a year, once a quarter. So it matters. Open it. All right, I don't know where we are here. Let me find my place. Teams and needs. Okay, Kenny, take us out. I think that's what I got for the rundown. Anything else from Faith? Did you want to update from the...
Well, I sure can. As many of you know, we have the Community Problems Assembly, which is going to be one of our 4 major assemblies of the year, coming up on October 25th. That's going to be on Zoom.
A week from tomorrow, right?
A week from tomorrow, and you can get the link for that by going to faithfallujah.org, and it's right on the homepage there. And also, there's some of us from Faith that are going to be going to the county council meeting on Tuesday.
Yep.
We have a member of our housing committee that is going to be sharing a story during public comment, which is right in the beginning, about someone in her congregation that is struggling to afford housing, who is in her 90s. And it's a very impactful story, and we want everyone that can come to join us. I think we're going to be meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning at the fountain right by the county administration building, and yeah, as many people as can come, that would be great. We'll have some extra Faith t-shirts if you don't have a Faith t-shirt, because we'll all be dressed in our yellow uniforms. And did I get everything, Steve?
He got it. Oh, and Steve has a quick announcement that he'd like to make. Actually, Fred, if you just want to turn your mic, we're going to let Steve come up and, I guess talk to us about an injustice that we can't let go unchallenged, right, Steve?
Right. Actually, there are 2 things we can do at the county council meeting. The federal CARES Act, don't ask me what it stands for, is allocating COVID-19 relief, and Volusia is getting a share of that, around $653. And what Volusia is proposing to do with that is build restrooms at the trailheads of multi-use trails. This COVID relief money is supposed to be for low-income and vulnerable people deal with the impacts of COVID-19. And if you are wondering how trailhead restrooms help low-income and vulnerable people, explain it to me, but otherwise I'm going to be there at the council. I have written a letter, an email to each of the council members, so we can come. I will be speaking about that as well. It is third on the consent agenda, so it's very close after public participation, and I'll be asking to speak specifically on the issue. So if you want to stay a little bit and support me on that, and if you are interested in writing an email, let me know. I guess the easiest, rather than me trying to recite my email, is to maybe email Kenny, and he can let me know of your interest. and I'll give you some details and some ways that you can contact the county commissioners.
Thank you, Steve. This is such a great example of, man, sometimes spirituality just sucks. You know, like I'm an avid runner and cyclist, and I love our trail system, and I really want new bathrooms at the trailheads. And I'm going to try and do this off the cuff. We have this series of videos that's coming out in the new year, and in kind of frequently asked questions that we're going to put a little twist on. But one of the things that we end up talking about in the video is the fact that we have the freedom to do anything we want. When we have the freedom to do something that isn't what's best for the common good, there's a story going around, especially in America, that what we have to set aside is our freedom, but that's not the truth. When we have the freedom to do what's good and the freedom to do what's not the best for the common good, we don't set aside our freedom, we set aside our preferences. So I want justice for people that don't have houses more than I want bathrooms at the trailhead. That's the kind of sacrifice we're talking about. Do we not want it? No, of course we do. Yeah, but there are people that need it more, and that means that we have to sacrifice some of our preferences in order for the things that are best for everybody else. Thanks a bunch, Steve. Appreciate it. Thanks, Fred, for the work you guys are doing. Let's give them a hand.
The point is to practice. Showing up, giving, and serving are some of the ways that we can practice together, from the rundown to weekly practices to giving financially. Make your plan now to do what you might not want to do later this week. And of course, if you need any help, I'm more than happy to help you right after the service. Planning our practice is part of our practice. Now that we've planned, let's practice together.
Fantastic idea. I feel like I'm going to out somebody on accident. Does anyone have a lighter? A lighter? Yeah, Heather. It's always Heather. Launch it over. I don't know if we have a crowd cam big enough to, or a t-shirt cannon. Oh, thank you, Jess. Kind servant. All right, thank you. Don't wait for me, start breathing. Oh, I blew it out, that's great. Oh, all right, we're going to sound the singing bowl and sit and ask you to join us for a few minutes, gently returning to your attention. In the tradition that we've evolved, both the traditions that we've come out of, the different mystical traditions, theological traditions, religious traditions, denominational traditions, all of these different streams that have contributed to the river that we swim in now have led us to this understanding that this return to our attention, at the deepest level, a return to the true self, is a return to God. We might name that centering prayer, simply shared silence, silent worship, meditation. We expect in the practice that our mind will wander and that we will have to gently return to our breath without judgment, simply noticing. Use the drone footage as best helps to survey your inner landscape. As always, may the silence allow us to contemplate what we want the ceremony to accomplish for us. Humility, spiritual rebirth, strength through what lies ahead. Breathe. It's all right. Let's sit silently together for about 3 minutes. Man, there were 10 sermons in that silence. God, that was so good. Did you hear the silence seep into that room? You know, I think we think of silence as being a victim, right? A victim of noise, and like it only exists if noise stops. But we got silent, and it was like it crept in there and got them quiet. It was beautiful. And then 80s hair metal. I don't know what we do without that. And silence, that was fantastic, that motorcycle music. All right, Heather, let's get some readings, shall we, for some context for our conversation tonight. Readings about orphans and widows and prisoners.
Right, let's get some fluency in Bible
Yes,
that we
yes.
don't assume.
Yes, exactly. If you don't know this, here's some perspectives right from the Bible.
So I don't know where this is from because it's not listed up there, but
The Bible. We'll just say it's from the Bible.
it's from the Bible. Yes,
Tantamount to saying it's from the library.
from the library.
Yeah.
Yes. From
a source.
Father of the fatherless and protector of widows is God in his holy habitation. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction. Remember those who are in prison, as though in prison with them. When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And he will answer, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of my brothers, you did it to me. Learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause. You shall not mistreat any widow or fatherless child. He executes justice for the fatherless and the widow and loves the immigrant.
Really loves the immigrant.
Yeah, giving him food and clothing. Do not oppress the widow, the fatherless, the sojourner, or the poor, and let none of you devise evil against another in your heart.
So we're going to kick this, thank you for that, by the way, Heather. We're going to kick this question around, what do these groups have in common? And obviously, like, the fact that this is such a repeated message throughout the course of the Hebrew Bible. I had a coffee with my friend Ken Goldberg, who is a Reformed Jew. He's a local contractor, and I love it. He felt like he wanted to tell me that they don't call it the Old Testament because that's pejorative. So it's the Hebrew Bible and then the New Testament, which I knew, but I thought it was really helpful that he told me. I really like that. So this over and over in the Hebrew Bible, it makes you ask the question, what in the world are they doing to orphans and widows? I mean, my God, they keep saying this over and over and over, so clearly men are not getting it. They're doing terrible things to orphans and widows. And obviously immigrants also make the list. So what do these groups have in common? And especially as you put yourself in maybe 2,000, 2,500 years ago, why these people? What do these groups have in common? Why does the Hebrew Bible keep mentioning them as a source of extra need of protection? Mary? Okay, they've experienced loss. Yeah, okay, loss. They're alone, they don't have a community. Okay, so some kind of a support system. Anybody else want to add to that? Bill?
A woman at that time without a man was treated like chattel, like she was
Yeah.
owned by somebody, and so she's grief-stricken, she's poor, vulnerable.
Yeah, okay. So, in like the marriage laws of that time, there were questions about like obviously rights of women, power, property, same with kids. They weren't treated as full people. Same with immigrants. So maybe we could summarize it that these people are uniquely powerless. They're people without power, people who have lost power in some sense. People who are on the underside of power. They don't have the ability to make a way for themselves because power is sort of on top of them. Let's see if we can put a little finer point on it. If we don't get to it, that's fine. But I'm wondering if we can trace something just maybe a little finer. What might these people share in their relationship with fear? Orphans, widows, and prisoners. What might they share in their relationship with fear? Cuando el grupos what are these three groups afraid of? Okay, so they're afraid of being other, they're afraid of being outside, they're afraid of being powerless, and they are powerless. Mary? They're afraid of being labeled. Okay, so they get put in a category. They're not people, they're a category. Lewis?
That word helpless, there were some provisions. For instance, if the widow's brother-in-law would have to marry her,
Right.
friends and the family and so on, and it started there. And
Yeah.
that was one thing they did.
Sure, so there were forms of basically social security that would try to make a way. Kids of the one family would go to an extended family. The same way we have godchildren and that kind of thing now.
Afraid of others.
Yeah, afraid of others.
Like, I know that,
Straight up.
yeah, I'm not an immigrant, my parents are.
Yeah.
And I have a fear of people from here because they're not always the kindest to my family.
Yeah. Yeah, there's sort of, Steve.
Afraid of what people who have power will do to them.
Yeah, afraid of people with power. Yeah, afraid of being abused. Yeah. Yeah. So yes.
It's because they're in transition, they're afraid for their future because they don't have a set plan.
Yeah, okay, so the fear of uncertainty also. They're in transition, or they hope they're in transition. They don't want to stay on the underside of power, so they hope they're in transition, but they don't know. This is back to what we've been talking about over and over. It's not always the specific fear, it's if that happens, can I handle it? Can I get out of powerlessness? Dan? Right. I don't know how I was just making a joke about this earlier this week, that sometimes people say the most profound things and I have to paraphrase it to try and recap it for the people online. Dan just told the most beautiful shorthand of the book of Ruth in 4 sentences. But yeah, the ways that we overcome our own boundaries. We overcome our own sort of religious barriers in order to see people as people. In order to just not be afraid of another person. I mean, wow. All right, we're going to start with, we're not going to start, we're already 30 minutes in, but we're going to continue with this email you got Friday because I think it summarizes what we're doing this fall. You guys have already done that really well. So let's see if this works. This is the shelter promo. If you didn't get this, this is the series we're in now. Hey everyone, welcome back to a swing of things. Not really the swing of things. The semester has kicked off and Collective's about to begin a fall series called Shelter, a new story about fear. Gareth Higgins says that fear can be a short circuit to our spirituality that prevents us from being present even to ourselves and to the ones that we love the most. But there's good news. We don't have to be afraid. We're going to explore our stories about fear. We're going to look at simple practices for when we feel afraid, whether that's fear that we can't fix something we've done, fear that we're always going to be this way. What about fear of being alone or fear of being broken, not having enough, death, meaninglessness, and more? We hope that you'll join us this fall for Shelter, where we're going to tell a new story about our fear. There's a place for you here. All right, we're going to talk in a second about how you can help by sharing that out, and hopefully that will be appealing to help people understand kind of the conversation we're having for the next few months. But I want to, just to make sure this is a nice crew, to make sure we're all on the same page with kind of the basic premise of what we're about. The opening reality is this, that we're afraid as beings. And a few problems. Number one, our fears are manipulated by politics, capitalism, and religion. If you have any questions about that, I'm happy to tell you about after. The second problem, our fear is hurting us, not serving us. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And the last problem, not the last, but one of the last ones we'll talk about, fear short circuits genuine presence. And like we said, if we can't be present to our true self, that means we can't be present to God. I mean, we can't be present to our neighbor. The rub, the paradox, the contradiction is that people run towards the crisis. People still run towards the crisis. So what's the difference between the kind of fear that paralyzes us and the kind that inspires us to acts of courage beyond ourselves? And I think what I want us to do in the next few months is acknowledge that the solution to all of these very real fear problems, and I think these are real at social levels, personal levels, spiritual levels, political levels, the solution to those fear problems, and I think the answer to that question, what moves us from a fear that paralyzes to a fear that inspires, I think the answer is a better story about fear. And I think that because Gareth Higgins thinks that, and he's convinced me. But part of the only way that this can work is if it works as a conversation, and is if we move through this together as a group of people. So share this video, invite others if you would this fall. It's a very gentle on-ramp. You don't have to be here week to week. It's a good series. You can drop in anytime. We've already been in it 3 weeks, but you're going to be able to access any of the stuff we talk about. And more important than anything, we're wading into fear, and so it's really important that we remember to laugh. These are serious subjects, but we have to continue to be the church that does not take ourselves too seriously. That's the only way we can really handle fear. We've got to laugh a lot. I mean, I'm religious for a job, but I believe more deeply than any religious conviction I have that laughter is medicine, that it heals. I've known it to be true in myself. So again, like, share, RSVP. The hope is, and Kenny and I have been working on building this platform for 6 months, and hopefully we'll really kind of kick it off in January. But the hope is during this series in the next few months that we can build an organic platform in social media where you guys get used to sharing and commenting and liking videos so that they reach people that are trying to find us, people in your networks. And if we can do that really well, we don't have to spend a bunch of money paying Facebook to promote our stuff, because really what we want to find is the people that are in our network. So like it and share it and do all that stuff. All right. And that's, Kenny says this every week. It's kind of like, man, that in one sense, and I think I did this, growing up, where I was like, oh, God, these announcements, it's like commercials in church. On one level, yeah, if you're here as a consumer, like, that sucks because it interrupts what you're here for, which is like a sermon or get inspired or hear some music. But if you're not here as a consumer, that's called practice. Part of our practice is thinking during the week about how it is that other people come into the practice of our community. And sometimes that's social media. Sometimes that's you saying something positive about the experience you've had. All right. It's 6. Finally, we can start the sermon. Nobody laughed. I don't care. No, this is a quick one. So why does the Bible call us over and over to care for and serve these communities, orphans, widows, and prisoners? I got a letter this week that was passed on to me secondhand because it was intended for the Quaker meeting that meets here, the Deland Quaker meeting that meets here on Sunday mornings. And it was a message from a prisoner, somebody who was in prison and was attempting to make a connection with this Quaker meeting and would like to communicate with the Quakers that are here in DeLand. And I was watching this thing recently that was like a recap of, I think it was Trevor Noah, I think the Daily Show with Trevor Noah, about the way that because of the lack of a safety net, especially with childcare, that women have been so disadvantaged in the pandemic in terms of the workforce, in terms of so many of the advances that were made in the last 30 years, that stuff's just been wiped off the progress map. And I heard this week that 170,000 kids lost their primary caregiver to COVID. Not that they got sick with COVID. 170,000 kids were orphaned by COVID. We've said in the opening weeks of this series that we feel afraid. This is the truth. We feel afraid. We have to own that. That's a part of being alive. We said that our fear is a story. Our fear is a story, or a set of stories, to be more specific. And ultimately, all of those specific fears sort of point to a big fear. What if X? Big fear. What if X? And we said last week, but even that isn't it. Even that isn't it. There's sort of a fear under that, big fear, and that's what maybe we call a deep fear. Because the deepest fear is, what if X and I can't cope? What if X and I can't handle it? What if X breaks me? What if I lose everything and I just can't? You're like, Jesus, this is depressing. Go back to the Bible. So the Bible says, serve those who lost everything, right? Those who literally can't. Immigrants, orphans, and widows. And not because that doesn't change how scary any of that stuff is. It changes how we practice learning to live with what scares us. Right? It's all of this counterintuitive stuff in the Bible. You move toward fear and it's robbed of its sting. You name it, and sometimes that can render the fear powerless. So a quick history of fear. I'm just going to give you the very shorthand and edit the rest out. This is just saber-toothed tigers and unshakable flinches. So picture yourself in an era somewhere between apes and cavemen. And so you've got your loincloth, you're grunting your answers, driven by hunger, impulses to eat, sleep, procreate, protect yourself. You're living in a settlement with max a couple dozen people. This is, as far as you know, the entire world. The original extended family. There's no king. No one has any needs that you've got to worry about besides your own. There's no marriage. Who knows what's going on with kids? But you share in a community, and periodically probably participate in a raid on a neighboring community, which is not cool, but you don't know better. Everything that matters takes place in this little community. There's also a dangerous tiger not the Tiger King, a real tiger, a legit saber-toothed, yes, better, a legit saber-toothed tiger. And when you're hunting and gathering, you have to be aware. You've developed these senses that make you more aware. And even though the tiger has bright colors, it really doesn't help. Because the surprise of his presence, if you don't see him soon enough, you're just dead. There's not anything you can do. So when you are moving through the jungle, and the wind blows, and the leaves move, and the thing goes up on the back of your neck, you run. It's not a choice you make. It's like something that happens in your body. Very often you're running before you realize you've made a decision to run. Your body just does it. And it's been a while since we've had to contend with jungle cats, although I have this theory that animals went ape during the beginning of the pandemic because people were outside a lot more, people were running into bears and all sorts of things. But anyway, that's another sermon for another time. We don't do this all the time, right? We're not walking through downtown and like, my goodness, there's a jungle cat, let's run for our lives. this is a big jump, but I want you to follow me. Similarly to the jungle cat, we've also begun, and I just say begun, and I'll tell you why. We've begun to wean ourselves off the habit of seeing our neighboring villages only as either enemies or people to pillage for their resources. And I say we've begun to wean ourselves because Mark Watts told me this story. He and Tosh were at, what's it called, homecoming weekend or parents weekend at UCF with Grace. She's involved in sorority life, and so there were all of these people around, Greek crazy, there's a football game, people are everywhere, they're all drunk, and Mark said he started recognizing these guys who had special hats, and their hats were drunk buddies, and they were sober pledges that had to go around and escort like the upperclassmen who were getting drunk to like keep them out of trouble. So sure enough, one of the drunk guys was over getting in trouble near where they generally were, and Mark Watts says, hey, and he grabs one of the guys with the drunk buddy hat, and he's like, hey, could you come over and sort of deal with this guy? He's causing quite, a stir, and we don't want to have to get to this point, but I'm a lawyer, so, let's get this guy. And the guy says to him, oh, he's not in my fraternity. He's not in my fraternity. He walks away. To Mark Watts, he walks away. You know what that means. He just walks away. He's not in my fraternity. And Mark chased him down and he said, listen, this is the rip that leads to the tearing of the fabric of society. This is where it begins. Our brains have inherited a legacy that owe more than a little to the presence of jungle cats and neighboring villages. And it's not just a memory. We can't just learn history differently. It's in our bodies. It's in our bodies that we protect ourselves from things that scare us and from others that scare us. And this book has continued to come up over and over for like the last 5 years. The body keeps the score, and it's blowing people's minds. The knowledge and wisdom and pain that our bodies possess. Universes. Most significantly for the cause of this series, neuroscientists tell us that in the amygdala, how many of you guys have ever heard of that? Amygdala, a few of us. The amygdala, these are two groups of nuclei that look like almonds deep inside the intricate architecture of the brain. So grab 2 almonds and just hold those. This is an object lesson. Welcome back to youth group. Grab your almonds. If you're allergic to almonds, there are cashews on the bar, but you're not going to eat your amygdala. But Larry's like, I prefer cashews. I'm going to go grab some cashews. Those sound better to me, actually. So we're pretty sure, we've got good science. We're pretty sure the amygdala play a major role in triggering the fear response. I want to remind you, this is a safe place. We all have something valuable to contribute. We're all, that's the school calling my iPad. We're all equal here. So this is a safe place. By a show of hands, in solidarity, raise your hand if your fear response, and you guys are probably familiar with your fear response, if your fear response includes a thudding heart, like something happens in your heart, there's a change at a blood pressure level, something happens in your heart. All right, how many of you, the tightness of skin? Tightness of skin. Some people say, what? Could be goosebumps. Some people say like around their face, like their face gets flushed and it sort of tightens. Yeah, okay, so Dan was like, he had to touch his cheek, but then he's like, okay, yeah, I get that. How many of you guys, the urge to run away? And maybe you're like, it depends on the thing. But the urge to lash out, that's a big one, I like that. That's one of my favorites. How about freeze, like you just can't move, okay? That was like a really, really great distribution. I wish I was a statistician. That would have just been beautiful. Good news, good news, you're human. Bad news is it's terminal and there is no cure, but you are all definitely human. Whether this reaction makes us fight or flight or freeze, the beginning of the good news is that this is good news that your body has evolved this response to an experience of danger. In short, the reason you have these overly excitable almonds in your head is that thousands of years ago, tigers programmed people. That's what we're dealing with. Over the period of tens of thousands of years, evolutionarily speaking, tigers programmed people. And that may now represent any number of dangers. If you grew up like me, I grew up on the beach, we evolved fear receptors that had to do with the experience of people drowning in rip currents. And so this was reinforced by hearing stories as a kid of people who drown in rip currents. You can hear my mom, Benjamin, be careful, you're going to drown in rip currents. And you grow up with all that stuff. About people who died in rip currents or they had to keep to the shallows or they'd be sucked out. And you can hear stories, sea monsters, right? People will evolve these stories. One of my good friends in middle school, his younger brother went surfing with his dad and they were caught in a rip current and the younger kid lost his board and the dad died holding his son up, like treading water, holding his son up. He died holding his son up in this rip current. Eventually some other surfers got to him and were able to save the son. I grew up with these stories. This is the Tigers. We grow up with this programming. And regardless of whether you're afraid of tigers or rip currents or something else, the point is the same. Your fear is utterly natural. It is not something you should be ashamed of. And it's also part of what we're talking about is that you also don't need to be afraid of it. You don't, and that's a weird thing to say. You don't have to be afraid of your fear. It's very natural. It's something evolution gave you. A human evolution safety mechanism that is second to none. We don't have enough time to do all this stuff, and it's so good. I want to talk to the women just for a second. How many of you have got that warning system that's gone off when you were alone, or you were at night, or you were in a social situation where there was no other indicator? It wasn't conscious, but it went off and you knew you were in danger, and you were right. How many of you guys have had that? I appreciate so much that Lewis is raising his hand. That's my favorite. This is better than any electronic warning system. And if you're guys too, you've had this experience of this thing working. That's the amygdala telling us that you have to protect yourself or you have to protect others. The challenge in this gift, the bad news, is that the amygdala can be really confusing. Because all they do, right? They're not binary. There's not part of the amygdala's programming that says, hey, that's scary. There's not another side that goes, hey, that's not scary. So while the amygdala is really valuable for things that are scary, it's a hammer, and all it sees is nails. So anything the amygdala triggers on, it tells you, hey, that's scary. It tells us, it can confuse us into thinking that everything's scary. And so it's one thing to conceal yourself or to flee or to fight if you know that there is a potential real threat, a predator nearby. In those circumstances, fear is actually a sidekick to wisdom. That's genuine. That's the good stuff. That's what your body gave you. Thank you very much, evolution. It's coming to know that there's something embedded in our bodies that causes this heightened sense of awareness that can prevent us from coming to harm. And that's cool. That's like a superpower. And yes, too good to be true. That your radar for too good to be true should be going off because the problem is the amygdala, they do not accurately discern the nature or scale of danger. So think about what we just said, and this should be starting to really unsettle you now. These things in your brain that all they do is tell you to be afraid, they also can't accurately discern the nature and scale of what they're telling you to be afraid of. I don't know if you guys are understanding what I'm saying. Your brain is an asshole. And it doesn't always work in your favor. So Exhibit A. Let's see if this plays.
Tyrone?
Are you going trick-or-treating?
No, probably.
That's not that guy's fault. That's the amygdala doing what the amygdala does. Please be careful. Let me tell you something. We have a holiday coming up this week that's about having fun with fear. Let me remind you, the amygdala is a terrible narrator. The amygdala tells the worst stories ever. So be careful when having fun with fear. The amygdala, these reactors, and the reactors of those that you're going to scare, they can't always tell the difference. So we may see the flash of orange and black fur behind some trees. We may see the shine of some teeth. We may hear a tropical growl. But unless we pause and adjust our eyes and discern a narrative, we don't know. We don't know if it's Joe Exotic. We don't know if it's a saber-toothed tiger. We don't know if it's a flower. We don't know. Because the only thing that will discern that is a story. Human beings predict the probability of something happening based on how easily we remember similar things happening. But we live in a culture that's addicted to telling stories of terrible things as if they're the only things. We live in a culture addicted to telling the story of terrible things as if they're the only things. And many of us ourselves have gotten in the practice of only telling the negative version of what's going on in our lives, meaning we're increasingly liable, as we participate in this sort of information and social media culture, we're increasingly liable to inflate the implications of whatever's lurking in the bushes. Whether it's real or imagined, we're amplifying it all the time. And the amygdala is a really unreliable narrator. I mean, think about this. You guys have heard these stories of parents who wake up in the middle of the night and they shoot an intruder and they find out it was their kid who was like startled by a thunderstorm. There's a difference between impulses that are triggered by the amygdala. This is something that happens in your brain at a chemical and electrical level that happens to human beings. There's a difference between impulses triggered by your amygdala and the story that we tell about them. And this is the story that we have to learn. Most of our fears are not true at all. And that all of them depend on the story that we tell ourselves. So let's estimate, say 10% of the fears are somehow rooted in reality. So you've got all of your fears. Maybe 10% are rooted in reality. Tigers, riptides, the potential damage of we all drove here in tanks that are controlled by our right foot. So fear in this sense is a gift of nature. I don't want to die in a riptide. I don't want to die in traffic. I don't want to die by a tiger. So this has already saved your life more times than you can count, right? We should be thankful for this gift from evolution. And this is just like you, fear cannot control itself. Fear can't control itself. That's not one of the things that it's made to do. And so we exaggerate unrealistic threats. It's not just one tiger, there's probably 6. They hunt in packs now. They're like raptors, right? That's how my brain works. It's like, oh, I saw orange. Now it's apocalyptic. It's not maybe one tiger. It's like there's no hope at all for anyone. Every mind has to be trained to tell the difference between the wisdom of avoiding tigers and the waste of fearing things that aren't there. Because if we don't know how to transform it, fear will control us. Or we'll become preoccupied and obsessed with fearing smaller things. We might waste our lives protecting ourselves from things that harm the soul. I love that quote. This is Higgins. We might waste our lives protecting ourselves from things that can't harm the soul. A life wasted on protecting parts of us that don't matter from things that aren't real is an unlived life. What do you think he's talking about? What are these things that can't harm the soul that we spend time being afraid of? Yeah, Jess?
The fear of not being perfect?
Oh, yeah, the fear of not being perfect. Yep, yeah. Imperfection can't harm your soul. And we probably waste so much time every day worrying about that. We can learn this. We can learn to discern the difference. Humans predict the probability of bad events occurring based on how easily we remember similar stories. In other words, the more we think about something, the more likely we predict it'll happen again. And it's a paradox that the path to overcoming fear depends on discovering the true self. But discovering the true self requires that we walk into the very vulnerability that we are most afraid of. We're terrified to know who we really are and to admit it to another person. We may be most afraid to face our true selves. And the good news is this really can't, and it also doesn't happen all at once. We give ourselves to this in a community over the course of our lives. It's a path. But if we pay attention to the wisdom found in stories about this path, we can begin to choose moments, and sometimes we can choose day by day to dissolve this sort of cloud and shadow that so many of us find between our self and our sense of who we really are. When we come to this table every week, we come with a choice again. And it's, I think, maybe a choice for the ritual, but I'm hoping that maybe it will begin to sort of signal a choice that we make each week. Which is that we have to choose what to do with fear, which means that we have to choose a story to tell. And I think I know so many people have struggled with this table, with the name of this table, with the symbol of this table. And I think the same thing is true. I think so many people have evolved these really vibrant and beautiful and really different and diverse relationships with the Eucharist, with the bread and the cup, with what we do here, because we have the ability to tell different stories about this table. And what I want to say is I think we also have the ability to tell different stories about fear. And this could be a symbol of fear, but it's not. You guys choose to tell an infinite number of more generous and life-giving stories week over week. We come each week and we look death in the face. And we choose to do ritual with our fear. And I think that's pretty cool. I was thinking about that this week, and I decided that's something I'm proud of. Because I think people do a lot of really destructive, or at least useless things with their fear. And I think it'd be really cool if people asked, like, what do you do with your fear? And we had people who were proud to say, oh, I take my fear to ritual, because I really find that ritual helps me to sort it out. Or I take it into conversations, because I think talking about my fear in community helps me to heal from it. We do ritual with our fear, the symbol of body separated from blood. That deepest fear, what if I lose everything? What if I lose even my very life? And hopefully, the table reminds us each week that the better story is that a life lived in love is only ever given as a gift. That the better story than whatever it is we fear about body separated from blood, whatever it is we fear about losing everything and our inability to cope, the better story is that a life lived in love is only ever given as a gift. We, as the body of Christ, to be broken, and ours as the blood to be shed. Let's come and receive, as we share these words, the table of this unconditional belonging and transformative love is set for us. It's open tonight to us and to all people. And as always, no one will ever be turned away. Let's share together this meal and these words, bread for the journey and nourishment for the soul. Come when you're ready.
Come up to meet you, tell you I'm sorry. Don't know how lovely you are. the start.
Thank you so much for joining us in person and everyone online too. Thank you again for making financial support a part of your practice by visiting collectivegives.com, and make sure that you plan to stay connected by visiting wearecollectivechurch.com. You can update your preferences to customize your engagement. For benediction this evening, Jamie Twerkowski writing for To Write Love on Her Arms. There is still some time. If you feel too much, there's still a place for you here. If you feel too much, don't go. If this world is too painful, stop and rest. It's okay to stop and rest. If you need a break, it's okay to say you need a break. This life, it's not a contest, not a race, not a performance, not a thing that you win. It's okay to slow down. You are here for more than grades, more than a job, more than a promotion, more than keeping up, more than getting by. This life is not about status or opinion or appearance. You don't have to fake it. You do not have to fake it. Other people feel this way too. If your heart is broken, it's okay to say your heart is broken. If you feel stuck, it's okay to say you feel stuck. If you can't let go, it's okay to say you can't let go. You are not alone in these places. Other people feel how you feel. You are more than just your pain. You're more than wounds, more than drugs, more than death and silence. There is still some time to be surprised. There is still some time to ask for help. There is still some time to start again. There is still some time for love to find you. It's not too late. You're not alone. It's okay. Whatever need and however long it takes, it's okay. It's okay. If you feel too much, there's still a place for you here. If you feel too much, don't go. There is still some time.
This is so important. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Kenny. Let's bring our hands together as a symbol of our intention. To our foreheads for clarity of thought. To our lips for clarity of speech. To our hearts for clarity of action. So that all that we say and do, love would be our first thought, our first word, and our first deed. Grace and peace. Thank you guys. Please help us clear the room for yoga.